Darius Carter boarded the plane like any loving father, calm, respectful, and accompanied by his two excited children, Liam and Zoe. As he approached his designated seat in first class, his demeanor revealed nothing but the anticipation of a rare and cherished weekend away from the pressures of everyday life. Yet the moment he tried to join his children in the premium cabin, a white flight attendant named Ava Mitchell abruptly halted him. Without checking his ticket or asking any clarifying questions, Ava assumed the worst in front of his children and forcefully directed him to the back of the plane. Unbeknownst to her, the man she humiliated that day was not only the father of two, but also the silent force behind the very airline for which she worked. By the time the flight landed, Ava's career and her self-image of authority were destined never to be the same. In the bustling gate area, amidst the familiar sounds of boarding announcements, rolling suitcases, and animated conversations, a tall African-American man, Darius Carter, stood holding the small hands of his children. Liam, who was 8, and Zoe, a cheerful 6-year-old, both wore matching travel hoodies and sneakers, their youthful energy undimmed by the day's unfolding drama. Darius had booked his first-class seats well in advance. His boarding passes clearly stated first-class seats 2A, 2B, and 2C. Every detail of his reservation was meticulously planned so that this trip would offer him a moment to disconnect from recent hardships and create lasting memories with his children. As the family stepped onto the plane, Liam and Zoe raced ahead, their giggles and excited chatter echoing through the cabin. Darius smiled gently as he followed them, carefully placing their bags in the overhead compartments, securing their seat belts, tucking in the complimentary blankets, and settling into seat 2C. Zoe's light-hearted laughter at a warm towel from the flight attendant mingled with Liam's wide-eyed fascination with the entertainment screen. Darius, taking in the calm atmosphere of first class, observed that most passengers had not yet boarded. For a moment, all seemed well, until the sound of heels signaled a dramatic change. Ava Mitchell strolled down the aisle with a practiced smile and courteous nods. However, when her gaze landed on Darius and his children, the warmth in her expression swiftly faded, replaced by a stern frown. She paused beside them and asked in an overly formal tone, "Good evening. Are you sitting with them?" Darius calmly replied that he was indeed their father. Ava blinked, then quickly checked her manifest. "I see tickets for 2A and 2B, but not for 2C, she said. Darius, still composed, produced his boarding pass and handed it to her. "It's 2C right here," he explained softly. Ava scanned the ticket, frowned, and remarked that the seat did not appear to be under his name. She inquired if he had been upgraded at the counter. Darius shook his head. He had booked all 3 seats together 3 weeks earlier. Without offering further explanation, Ava looked down at her tablet and then back at the children. "I'm going to confirm this with the gate agent. Please stay here until I return," she instructed before briskly departing the area. As Darius exhaled slowly, Zoe leaned in and whispered, "Why did she ask if you were sitting with us?" A hint of worry crept into Liam's face as he asked, "Are we in trouble?" Smiling gently, Darius reassured them that everything was all right, though he sensed an ominous shift in the atmosphere. Something was not right. A few minutes later, Ava returned clutching her tablet. Her expression hardened as if she had already made up her mind. "I've confirmed with the gate," she stated stiffly. "There appears to have been an error in the system. This seat was reassigned during check-in. We'll need you to relocate to the economy cabin." Darius, with eyes steady, calmly protested that he had not requested any reassignment. No one had notified him, and his reservation had been confirmed. Gesturing to another crew member in the galley, Ava maintained a tone that began as calm, but quickly grew sharper. "Your children may stay here, but your ticket does not reflect current first-class seating. I'm asking you to move to your assigned economy seat so we can complete boarding." With unwavering composure, Darius stood slowly and reached for his blazer to remove the ticket from his pocket once again. "I want you to take another look," he said softly. Ava, however, refused to acknowledge his explanation. "Please comply," she insisted, adding that she would escalate the matter if he did not move. Standing behind her, a younger flight attendant, Brianna, glanced at the children with evident discomfort, softly asking if they should double-check the manifest. Ava shot Brianna a sharp look and declared that the matter had already been handled. Meanwhile, passengers in adjacent rows, some pulling out earbuds, others whispering, watched the unfolding scene in silent judgment as Darius told his children, "I'll be right back," while gently placing his hand on their shoulders. Without raising his voice, he picked up his carry-on and walked toward the back of the plane, leaving behind an unsettled Brianna and an oblivious cabin crew. In economy, Darius settled into a narrow seat far removed from his children. The atmosphere here was noticeably colder, noisier, and less personal. As he stared at the seat in front of him, his mind replayed the earlier confrontation, Ava's assumption, her refusal to listen, and the way she had spoken in front of his children as if he were an intruder. That very moment, he extracted his phone from his pocket, its screen illuminated with a message from his assistant confirming a boardroom appointment for later that week. Ignoring the work-related distraction, Darius composed a quick message to his assistant. "They just removed me from my seat. My ticket wasn't valid and the kids are still in first class." Seconds later, a reply arrived instructing him to stay put. "I'll take care of it," along with the flight number on display. With a quiet determination, Darius locked his phone and placed it face down on the tray table, convinced that the situation was about to escalate. Back in first class, Liam continued glancing toward the aisle with a tense expression while Zoe fidgeted in her seat, still tucked under the blanket that their father had given her. Brianna approached them quietly, lowering herself to their level to ask gently if they were okay. Zoe nodded slowly and asked, "Why did that lady make our dad leave?" Brianna, hesitating as she sensed the complexity of the issue, softly reassured them that everything would be fine. Liam met her gaze, clearly stating in his eyes that nothing had been done wrong, though Brianna herself seemed unable to find the right words. Meanwhile, Ava leaned against the counter in the galley, casually sipping her coffee as if nothing abnormal had occurred, even as a junior attendant passed by and inquired if she needed assistance. Dismissing his offer with a slight wave, she explained that seating mix-ups happened frequently. But this was not just another mix-up. Inside the cockpit, the captain received a priority message from ground control. His co-pilot raised an eyebrow as the screen blinked twice. "Looks like we're getting a call. It's coming from the corporate operations line," the captain announced. Picking up the in-flight phone, he listened intently as a calm, authoritative voice explained that Mr. Darius Carter, a passenger in Seat 2C, was in fact the primary shareholder and owner of the airline. He was just moved to economy. The message continued, and the captain's face shifted from routine neutrality to one of growing concern. Nearby, Ava did not notice the dramatic change happening just a few feet away as she busied herself with organizing the drink carts, humming as though the incident were merely an everyday glitch. Yet in the cockpit, the atmosphere had changed. The captain frowned and stated quietly to his co-pilot, "That man back there, the one forced into economy, he's the owner." The co-pilot blinked in disbelief. "You're kidding?" the co-pilot asked. "Nope," replied the captain. "And corporate wants this fixed immediately, before we even leave the runway." With a calm and decisive tone, he flipped the intercom switch and announced in the speaker, "Flight Attendant Ava Mitchell, please report to the cockpit immediately." Back in the galley, Ava froze mid-sip, confused by the unexpected summons during pre-takeoff. She set down her coffee, smoothed her uniform, and muttered to Brianna on her way up the aisle, "Hold the front." Brianna nodded, but did not look up as Ava entered the cockpit. Inside, the captain's face was unreadable as he addressed her firmly. "Miss Mitchell, we've just received word from operations. There's a serious issue involving passenger Darius Carter." Ava, still not fully understanding, replied, "Yes, I had to move him from first class. There was a ticket mismatch." The captain raised his hand and interrupted, "There wasn't. The man you removed is Darius Carter, the majority owner of this airline. You are to escort Mr. Carter back to his original seat in first class immediately, apologize in front of the cabin and his children, and upon landing, file a written report with the executive board." His words struck Ava like a blow. For a moment, the blood drained from her face as she stammered, I didn't know that was the problem. The captain's expression remained firm as he continued. You didn't ask. You assumed. Fix it. With her hands trembling, Ava reached for the cockpit door and, with a pale expression, stepped back into the cabin. Her heart pounded as passengers looked up in curiosity and suspicion. Some seemed to sense the gravity of the situation, while others quietly followed her every step. Darius watched calmly from his economy seat, his eyes fixed on the safety card and his phone resting quietly on the tray table. When he saw Ava nearing his row, he offered her a polite smile. Mr. Carter, she began, her tone stiff as she attempted to salvage the situation, there's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to escort you back to your seat in first class. Darius paused for a long silent moment before nodding slowly and standing up. The silence that followed was louder than any confrontation, and as Darius returned to first class, a hush fell over the cabin. Conversations paused, earbuds were removed, and phones tilted subtly as every passenger witnessed the dramatic reversal. Liam's face lit up with relief as he saw his father return, and he called out, Dad, while unbuckling his seatbelt. Zoe, clutching her cherished stuffed panda, relaxed slightly as the familiar presence of her father filled the cabin once again. Ava, now just one step ahead of Darius, seemed as if she were marching toward her own sentencing. Stopping near the 3 seats, she turned to face him in a stiff, robotic posture. Struggling to find the right words, she finally said in a voice that trembled with regret, I apologize for the inconvenience. There was an error on my part regarding your seating assignment. Darius, his expression calm, yet unreadable, listened silently. The quiet moment was broken only by Brianna, who, standing to the side, watched Ava's faltering apology while the children sat quietly absorbing the gravity of the event. Ava took a deep breath, her voice softening further as she repeated, I'm sorry for how I handled the situation. Darius responded with a simple nod, and then, gently, he called his children to scoot over. Liam slid toward the window as Darius settled into his rightful seat once more, meticulously adjusting his tray and folding his coat on his lap. Zoe asked with a tender smile, Can we watch the movie now? To which Darius replied, Yeah, sweetheart, go ahead. As the plane began to taxi onto the runway, the hum of the engines rose and the seatbelt sign dinged. Ava stood there uncertainly. No one had told her to leave, nor had anyone instructed her to stay. Looking around, she found that most passengers cast their eyes upon her with quiet judgment and a palpable sense of guilt. Some quickly looked away, while others simply pretended not to notice. Slowly, with each echoing step toward the galley, her footsteps now heavy and laden with regret, Ava passed Brianna, whose narrowed eyes and low, firm voice quietly asked, You didn't even check his name, did you? Although Ava's lips parted as if to reply, the question remained unanswered, and Brianna, disappointed yet resolute, walked away focused on her duties. In seat 2C, Darius sat with his hands folded and his eyes locked on the tray table, his mind replaying every detail of the injustice. He had not raised his voice, demanded anything, or spoken a word of protest. Instead, his silence spoke volumes. He leaned back, glancing fondly at his children, Liam laughing at a cartoon, and Zoe wearing her headphones, a gentle testament to his steady resolve. Still inside Darius, a storm was building, not one of reckless anger, but of slow, patient determination. He recalled how Ava had spoken with unwavering confidence in her mistaken assumptions, and that very confidence now fueled his inner strength. Just then, Brianna reappeared with a tray of drinks. With quiet courtesy, she asked if Darius needed anything for himself or his children. Water for me, juice for them, please, Darius requested softly. Brianna offered a small, grateful smile as she moved away to fulfill the order. Meanwhile, Darius's phone vibrated with yet another message. He glanced at the screen and saw that corporate operations were now monitoring the flight. The sender, a high-ranking executive named Robert Hayes, confirmed that senior operations would follow up upon landing. Darius, however, barely registered the notification. His focus remained solely on his children and the unfolding events. Back in the galley, Ava leaned against the metal counter, her hands tightly gripping its edge as she recalled her 12 years of service. She had handled rude, drunken, and even threatening passengers with strict professionalism, yet nothing could have prepared her for the error she had now made. Her internal confidence had collapsed, and her thoughts spun in regret. Brianna, returning with the drinks, gently probed, "Why didn't you scan the ticket?" In a trembling voice, Ava replied, "I didn't think I needed to." Brianna's tone grew sharper as she remarked, "No, you chose not to, and that's not the same." Ava shot Brianna a sharp glance, but before any further words could be exchanged, the captain's terminal pinged with a new message. "Mr. Carter is being observed. Ensure full protocol service. Do not leave cabin oversight to Ava Mitchell. Management decision pending." The captain himself muttered to his co-pilot, "Looks like this flight just became a corporate problem," as he rubbed his chin in thought. In first class, Brianna returned with the drinks and placed them carefully on the tray table. "Thank you," Darius said softly. After a moment's pause, he inquired, "How long have you worked for this airline?" "Almost 2 years," Brianna answered with a small nod, and Darius added quietly, "You're doing fine." Surprised by the unexpected kindness, Brianna smiled and stepped away. Meanwhile, Zoe tapped her father's arm and asked, "Can we watch the movie now?" Darius smiled, kissed Zoe on the head, and handed her the headphones as the plane began to taxi onto the runway. With the hum of the engines growing louder and the seatbelt sign flashing, Ava closed her eyes and took a deep breath, knowing that this flight had taken a direction beyond her control, a direction that would forever alter the lives of everyone on board. The plane soared into the sky with a smooth, steady climb, yet inside the cabin an undercurrent of tension persisted. Passengers sat silently, some flipping through magazines, others pretending to sleep, while Darius remained alert, his mind replaying Ava's assumptions and the injustice inflicted upon him and his children. As dark clouds passed silently by the window, a slow and deliberate storm of determination built within him. He was not angry for his own sake. He had long dealt with people who questioned whether he belonged simply because of the color of his skin. What pained him most was that his children had been forced to witness this confrontation, and now, through his steady silence, he chose to demonstrate that the best response was calm dignity. Before long, Brianna returned once again, kneeling beside Darius with a folded note. "This was just handed to me from the cockpit," she said quietly. "The captain thought you should see it." Darius took the small piece of airline stationery and read the succinct message. Corporate operations were monitoring the flight, and an executive team would wait at the gate to speak with him directly. The note concluded with a formal apology from the captain himself and assurances that the incident would be addressed. Darius folded the note slowly and placed it into his pocket, his expression unreadable as he reassured his children without a word. Ava, meanwhile, had become almost a ghost, no longer noticed by passengers who now looked at her with silent judgment. Whispers spread among the crew, and passengers in economy murmured about the incident. The owner had been forced into a lower class, all because of a ticket mismatch that never truly existed. Even as the cabin buzzed with quiet discussion and subdued outrage, Darius's focus remained solely on his children. He watched with tender calm as Zoe, clutching her stuffed panda, and Liam, absorbed in a superhero movie, continued to brighten the otherwise tense atmosphere. At the same time, corporate communication began pouring in. Robert Hayes, the executive vice president of the airline, sent a message confirming that operations were monitoring the flight live and that a full internal investigation would ensue upon landing. In the cockpit, the captain read another update instructing, "Mr. Carter is being observed. Ensure he receives full protocol service." It was clear that the incident had grown beyond a simple seating error. It had become a corporate issue. The captain, rubbing his chin, muttered, "This flight just became a corporate problem," as he prepared for the inevitable repercussions. As the plane neared the runway for landing, The unresolved tension in the cabin was palpable. Darius's gaze remained fixed on the window as the city lights emerged below. Every passenger in first class now shared a collective understanding that something significant had happened, something that challenged long-standing assumptions and demanded accountability. At the same time, Ava's internal world crumbled. She realized that her rash decisions had not only humiliated a proud father, but had also shifted the very culture of the airline. Once the plane touched down, uniformed security officers, accompanied by a sharply dressed director of flight operations, made their way through the cabin. With deliberate precision, the director's silver name badge gleamed as he ordered Ava Mitchell. "Miss Mitchell, you are to be detained for an immediate incident review." The passengers, though subdued, could not help but watch in silent awe and judgment as Ava was led away. Darius, still accompanied by his children, remained calm as he stepped off the plane and into the terminal, each movement measured and dignified. In the terminal, the atmosphere was uncharacteristically subdued. Ground agents, security officers, and even a quietly empathetic gate agent acknowledged Darius's presence with nods and respectful gestures. A man from operations greeted him warmly. "Mr. Carter, welcome home. We have a private lounge prepared for you and your children while the review begins." With a small smile and a simple nod, Darius led his children to the lounge, their earlier distress slowly giving way to the comforting normalcy of soft couches, snacks, and reassuring hospitality. Inside the lounge, the airline executives began discussing the fallout from the flight incident. In a meeting that would soon prompt a far-reaching internal review, Darius Carter took the stage at an emergency leadership town hall. With a humble button-down shirt and sleeves rolled up, not dressed in the trappings of entitlement, he addressed the top managers and board members gathered before him. His voice was calm and deliberate as he explained that the matter was not simply about punishing one flight attendant, but about unraveling the unconscious bias and faulty training that had enabled Ava Mitchell to assume she could make decisions based solely on appearances. Darius spoke passionately about the need for a real cultural change, a shift built on accountability, empathy, and structural reform rather than shallow PR fixes or checkbox training modules. In his measured tone, he declared, "I am not asking for your sympathy. I want your structure to change," urging the executives to replace outdated practices with policies that would ensure every passenger, irrespective of race or background, was treated with the utmost respect. The room filled with a mix of stunned silence and gradual applause as Darius's words resonated deeply among his colleagues. It was clear that his stance was not just about a singular incident, but about catalyzing a profound transformation in the company's values and practices. Back with Ava Mitchell, the consequences of her actions were unavoidable. In a small, sterile office, she underwent a formal investigation led by an impartial mediator. With hands trembling and eyes welling up with regret, Ava admitted that her actions were rooted in long-held assumptions and a failure to read the situation correctly. Despite having served for over 12 years, she now recognized that she had not been fair. Her familiarity with a pattern of bias had blinded her to the truth, and in doing so, she had inadvertently taught children a harsh lesson. Though she was placed on unpaid suspension and not allowed to report to duty or speak publicly about the incident, her personal journey toward redemption had just begun. In a quiet moment later, Ava reached out with an apology that was both personal and raw, acknowledging that her mistake was not simply a misjudgment of a ticket, but a misinterpretation of a human being's dignity. In the days that followed, Darius Carter continued his quiet crusade for change. The incident, which had already gone viral on social media with headlines such as "From Turbulence to Transformation: How One Flight Changed an Airline," soon sparked a broader conversation about inclusivity and customer care. Darius's heartfelt speech at the town hall, absent of theatrics yet brimming with conviction, ignited a series of concrete reforms. Mandatory bias recognition and conflict escalation training were introduced across the airline. Real passenger testimonies recorded, and every crew member was required to re-examine the assumptions that had led to such a drastic mistake. At home that evening, Darius sat at his kitchen counter watching his children chase each other across the living room. Their laughter, mingled with the distant hum of the evening news, provided him with a sense of solace. His phone buzzed with an email from Ava Mitchell. Her subject line read, "Request to apologize, Mr. Carter." In that message, she admitted that her actions had been a choice driven by unfounded assumptions, and though she did not expect forgiveness, she hoped that her apology would spark a deeper examination of bias. With quiet resolve, Darius replied, "I accept your apology, and I hope you never stop examining a bias," knowing that while apologies were only the beginning, true change required action. Over the next few months, the airline's transformation became evident. In new internal trainings called cabin culture, belonging at 30,000 feet, every detail, from greeting a passenger to verifying a ticket, was reimagined to ensure respect and equity. In a subsequent board meeting, executives announced that flight attendant Ava Mitchell's resignation had been accepted in lieu of termination, and she had embarked on a personal journey of education, enrolling in programs focused on racial dynamics and workplace structures. For Darius, the legacy he was building was not measured by titles or headlines, but by the quiet dignity he displayed in every moment and the valuable lessons he imparted to his children. That evening, as Darius watched Liam and Zoe play in the backyard under the fading glow of sunset, he reflected on the changes that had been set in motion. Their laughter, the simple joy of building a fort out of bed sheets and sticks, reminded him that the true victory lay not in a public spectacle or corporate statement, but in the assurance that every family, regardless of appearance, belonged wherever they chose to sit. His heart swelled with quiet satisfaction, knowing that one change policy at a time, one change heart at a time, the world was slowly learning to treat every individual with the respect they deserved. Before he stepped out to greet the cool evening air and embark on his next journey, Darius embraced his children tightly, murmuring words of wisdom. "Don't talk to strangers. Only talk to those who treat you right. And always remember, kindness wins." With a final wave goodbye to the familiar terminal and a renewed sense of hope, Darius Carter walked forward with his children by his side, a man no longer defined by past prejudices, but by the promise of a better tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey. If this story touched your heart and inspired you to stand up for what is right, please give a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter.